welcome to Nerds in the Dark. I'm Mikie.
I'm Mika.
Darnel.
And we're being joined today by a very special guest. We're here with the D&D Mom, who...
Hello.
She's one of my favorite creators on TikTok, because I absolutely love the content. And
thank you.
I think my favorite thing is the things in the player's handbook that just don't make sense.
Yes, that is what I'm most well known for.
So tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, you can call me Shando. That is my OG friend nickname. That's what I generally go by online because I am a special ed teacher who works with, a sensitive population. And as long as that is my main source of income, I don't want anybody to be able to find, where I work or my children at all. So nobody gets to know my real name. Gosh, what else do I do? I run a D&D club for children.
Ooh.
And I also am the co-founder of a Twitch channel called Bard Community College, which is a basically artist collective of people who are committed to creating safe RPG spaces and a platform for people who may be underrepresented in our RPG spaces to make art and share their art and be appreciated.
Nice.
That's really cool, actually. I didn't know about the last one, the safe spaces. We do try here to be a very safe and inclusive space. So we do talk about a lot of topics here, but we try to be very inclusive. It's very big for us.
Yeah, as it should be.
Definitely.
So we're gonna dive into the episode here. So for today's episode of the NerdTable discussion, what we're going to be discussing today is the troublesome depiction of evil monster races in fantasy media. We're going to look at how goblins, orcs, and other monster races are often seen as inherently evil in books, movies, and games. And we're going to explore the argument that having inherently evil races can be bad because limiting player choice and agency. And that's what we're going to go through.
Yeah, I think that sounds fascinating. I'm very excited that someone wants to talk with me about these issues because I feel like mostly I'm just shouting into the internet and get a somewhat, positive response, but I do get a lot of old guard, like old school, middle-aged white guys who disagree with me in a condescending way. So here I am.
Always fun.
Here I am.
Fun stuff.
So let's dive into one that is a little more common because it's related to our previous topic in Harry Potter, but we looked at the goblins in Harry Potter. And Malika, what can you tell us about the depiction of the goblins in Harry Potter?
They're seen as mean, evil a little bit, controlling, but they also hold a high power in the banks. They have control over the banks, at least movie-wise. That's what we see of them. They're short, little, angry men who control all the money.
Yes, they're very good and covetous of money. It's not subtle.
No.
Not at all.
But, I mean, I don't really trust J.K. Rowling to do anything correctly, so...
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the Harry Potter fans out there, but I never was into Harry Potter when I was younger. I had a lot of friends who were super into Harry Potter, but it didn't hold that escapism for me. I was much more into sci-fi when I was younger. And then now as an adult, with all of the context that I have to examine her work critically. It's like,
Yeah.
ooh,
That's exactly what I was gonna suggest too.
We caught a lot of hate.
ooh, those are magical Jews. Like you just made
Yeah.
like a whole no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, we caught some hate because we disagreed with the recent stuff that J.K. Rowling's doing, and we had an episode about it.
I think that's a good thing that you had an episode about it. I like the joke of, man, I really wish we could find out who wrote the Harry Potter books. It's a mystery for the ages. It just nobody knows the original
Right.
author. They just appeared one day. Yeah, that woman is trash.
I
Trash.
agree.
I agree. Yeah.
Same.
I think this whole episode is just gonna be a lot of yeah. I agree.
JK part 2.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll sip the tea and
Yeah.
dish the dirt all day on people like J.K. Rowling. So
You're in
Sounds
good
like
company
we need
for
a
that.
part 2.
yeah, I'll come
I like a
back.
good fight.
I'll come back anytime you want. I have a whole list of people that I want to enact revenge upon.
He has a list. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Darnel, you had a movie that you watched recently.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, you were talking about the Bronx.
Oh, Dragon Prince.
Oh, that was the show.
Right.
I thought.
Oh,
Bro, Vampires versus the Bronx, bro.
Oh, that one. I watch a lot of movies. I'm sorry. Like, you think I have to do anything?
You watched a
I'm a-
movie lately. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
You literally said you were going to reference this movie.
Yeah, I say
That's
a lot
why
of
I
things.
watched it.
Oh yeah, Vampire vs. Bronx, where a bunch of white people kick out a bunch of black people from their homes.
First of all, they were all mixed, and the majority of them were Afro-Latinos, okay?
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Correct.
Represent.
Yeah,
They were my
Latino.
people. Okay, the little Puerto Rican Harry Potter, me.
All right. So what was that? What was that about? Since you guys both watched that, like,
Essentially, white vampires come in and want prime real estate, so they can just hunt people who won't be missed. And they specifically pick the Bronx, and chaos ensues because nobody's gonna believe a bunch of 13-year-old Puerto Rican and black kids.
so is it
The
like
name
an
of this film?
Vampires versus the Bronx. It
That's
just came
literally
out
the
on
name of
Netflix.
it.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
So is it like an
It's a kid's
allegory
movie.
for like gentrification?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It's a kid's
Like that's the
kids
main
movie.
thing is that they come in, people are getting kicked out of their neighborhood because they can't afford to stay, and when they take the buyout, they disappear.
Ooh. Okay. So they get the money. They get the money and then disappear from the neighborhood, never to be seen again.
They
yeah.
sign the contract. They don't get the money because after signing the contract,
They get eaten.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Ah.
That's
So-
interesting.
Yeah, and the main issue is they're like, no one's gonna miss these people.
Were
They're
there
expendable.
any good vampires in that? Ooh, not a one.
No, there's one that pretends to be good, but then it's like at the end, it's like, ha, bitches got you.
Well, I can appreciate to a certain extent that there isn't like a white savior.
Oh, well, they kind of try to do that, and then that's the one who says, I got you.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, they
Big
say,
oof. But like then the moral is like white vampire people are bad no matter what, which systemically is probably true.
yeah,
like this is a weird allegory and I haven't seen the film, but I feel like turning gentrification into literal vampires sucking all the resources out of a community is kind of cool, if not like really obvious metaphor.
That's
But
Yes.
was it a good movie?
It
Oh, it was
okay.
dope.
It was
made me
dope?
laugh.
Okay.
So
All right.
I should watch it. Okay.
Like it's a kids movie that's like adult can watch and not hate themselves.
Okay.
It's something that I could like use to indoctrinate my nephews who
Yes.
live in their white suburban area, don't experience culture at all.
So you like
It's my
watch that
breath.
movie, and then you're like, now we can talk about systemic racism.
Mhm. I do that every time they come and visit me and stay with me. Like I got them deep. I got my hooks in them deep. They play D&D with me. We play Zelda games together. We read books, and I teach them about gender equality. And now I can watch this movie with them and talk with them about it. I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Wait.
All right. Let's see, another one we were gonna cover, and I know that Darnell watched. I don't know if you watched it, Malika, but Bright.
Yes.
Okay.
I did my homework.
The orcs in that movie are so bad.
Yeah.
So they're orcs. I've never seen it. I've seen
Okay.
advertisements for it. I don't know the premise of it, so tell me.
So the premise.
Essentially-
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Essentially, like there was a big battle like 2,000 years ago, and like now everybody lives in peace. Like fairies, orcs, and like everything in between, and humans all live together in like modern times. But like the fairies are all are the rich people. The orcs have turned into primarily just a bunch of gangbangers, and everybody else is like pretty much just a nuisances to the humans.
Yeah, it's set in
And-
like current day LA.
Yeah, like current day LA. So like the orcs are like clearly like the gangs are just rolling the neighborhoods and trying to rob people and just
And-
selling drugs.
And isn't like Will Smith in it?
Yes.
Yes, Will Smith
He's
is
a
like
cop.
He is a cop,
Yep.
and he said
And
he
hit-
kills a fairy and says fairy lives don't matter today. That is precisely how that line was received by everyone.
And then
And
his partner is the orc, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
His
he's like-
partner's
Like one of the good ones.
Yeah,
He's the only orc on the
he's an
police force.
outsider.
yeah, he's
he's
the
an
he's the first orc on the police force.
and he was
So he's like he's the first of his kind.
yeah, and he
Just
was
real confusing metaphors.
yeah, he was abandoned by his community for joining the police force.
Well,
Like,
even before that, because he's not of the blood. He wasn't like a full orc to them because of his tusks or his whatever.
oh yeah, they had like a whole tribal thing, and they were like, yeah, he's not one of us.
Like yeah, like well once he like became a cop, it's like oh you're completely dead to us now.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff in that, and that movie is pretty terrible.
It's bad.
I mean, I never watched it because I heard it wasn't good. Now I know why it's not good.
It's just really bad.
I mean,
Like
Yeah.
everything Will Smith does for like the most part is very like milk toast. It's like very this is palatable African American culture for white folks. Like I
Yeah.
don't. I liked Men in Black. That was a pretty fun movie. But I don't know. I really was a big fan of Independence Day. He just is like the deeper into Scientology he's gotten, like the more alien like he has become to me, where it's like I don't even think I could talk to him and be on the same wavelength with him.
is he a
anymore.
Scientologist?
Oh yeah.
What?
Oh
it's-
yeah.
I did not know that.
This one's a lot now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Speaks
got-
so much.
it does.
He's got like that sort of brainwashed look in his eyes.
Oh man.
You know the church has got some dirt on him. Like he's and he just also doesn't age apparently either. He looks
Well.
exactly the same as he looked 25 years ago.
I mean, that has to be what the church has on him. You know. he's
yeah,
just like,
it's all the what are the little particles that they can manipulate with those machines called? I don't remember.
No.
it's.
I want to say metachlorians, but like that's
Midichlorians? Oh, you mean from Star Wars?
It would be just as accurate. Like it doesn't.
Thetans? Thetans.
Yes.
Thetans. They're like little alien ghosts that like live in your body. I'm sorry, we didn't come here today to talk about Scientology, but when you have that episode, let me know, because I have researched it a lot.
Sounds like we need another one.
Yeah.
We'll come back to it for that.
I'm a big fan of cults.
So going back a little bit on Bright, one of the things that I remember from that was that it was 2,000 years ago. So humans have held orcs in humans and elves have put orcs down for 2,000 years, because 2,000 years ago, during the war, when there was an evil necromancer uprising, they sided with the necromancer. So they're like, orcs are evil. They sided with the bad guy 2,000 years ago. They're going to side with them now. Like, and it's just like, it's one of those things where it's kind of like this weird, like, it's this weird thing where it's like, hey, it happened in the past, like, let it go. But it's just like, is that like an allegory for like telling like black people to let go of slavery? Like, what does it mean?
And 2,000 years is a long time too.
Yeah.
It's not like we have, daily conversations about like the ethical decisions made by, the ancient Romans or anything like that. Like, we never have a conversation about like a specific thing that happened that like vilified an entire group of people.
Yeah.
That long ago.
Yeah.
It's like not relevant anymore. So that's interesting story beat for sure.
So I guess we move on to everybody's like favorite evil races in Lord of the Rings. No one ever questions the goblins and orcs there.
I mean, I feel like the orcs from Bright, probably are derived, the Tolkien-esque, way that orcs were described in the books.
Yeah.
Was like a savage mongoloid race. Like they were definitely meant to be like brown people.
Yeah.
Like that's how they were described, and that's where all of the modern RPG looks and flavors come from, is this original Tolkien description of them.
And I read as well that when they came from, like, when the stories came from Britain to the US, the orcs got darker. So it's just like, it's more of that thing of like, they really like try to like to make them into the other, so that we can hate them. And it's really interesting that like a lot of the good races, like I sent these guys like screenshots from like the D&D like player's handbook of like different races that are good and evil, and it's interesting how a lot of the good races are very light. A lot of the darker
and
ones.
European looking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's
fair-skinned. I mean, it's definitely arguments that I get in with people a lot are about intent. Was it intended to be racist? No, most of the stuff that happens in our day-to-day lives, the decisions that we make, aren't intentionally racist. It's within a larger context of, actually, it's just everything is racist. And so by acting within that context, our actions are frequently racist. So it doesn't really matter if WotC, like, for the last 20, how long have they had the property? I don't know, like at least 15-20 years at this point. It doesn't matter if they're intentionally being racist, but by keeping these tropes in place, that is propping up a system that depicts people in a really gross way. And that's not okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it's interesting how you say like the intent, because we have a lot of conversations amongst us. We do have a couple in some of our previous podcasts, but like we regularly talk about this stuff all the time, and we talk about intent, and it really doesn't matter. Like it if you didn't intend to hurt someone, like that is important, but it's not all of it.
Yeah, it's in my opinion basically irrelevant. But that's me. That's my hot take. Nobody cares if you tried to be racist unless it was like you were really trying to be racist. It's about what is happening that supports that behavior to continue happening.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But I don't know, have you all had conversations about kind of internal racism issues over at Wizards of the Coast before?
No, not at Wizards of the Coast.
Not Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, it's been in the discourse a lot lately, so I don't know if you've touched on it or want to talk about it at all.
Yeah. We were looking recently at the news at like how they said that they were going to not have inherently evil races moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that announcement, and a lot of as you call them, the old guard seem to be very vocally upset about it.
It was a lot of people that were like, don't change my don't change my stuff, don't take away my stuff. People was the argument that I heard all the time, like the material isn't racist, it's like how it's being used, and if you have people at your table that are being gross, like that's not the fault of the material, that's because you're not running a solid enough table. It's like, well, actually it's both. Like there's no reason why WotC needs to still be selling Oriental Adventures, a supplement for 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons, for a profit. They should not be selling that anymore. They still are. Even with all of the changes that they have been making and these first steps that they've been taking for years, there's still, you still have to pay money for that PDF. They're still making money off of that. They don't have to do that, but they're still doing it. And there are people that are happy that they're still doing that.
Yeah,
it's gross.
I definitely agree with that. I heard that they're really bad about like monetizing like everything.
Yes.
I heard that like even if you purchase the PDFs like online, everyone has to purchase the PDF in a campaign. That's what I heard from somebody.
So D&D Beyond is not technically owned by WotC, and they're the ones where like you have to pay for digital copies of everything, and it costs the same amount as it would to just buy the source book, but you don't get the source book, you only get a digital copy. And if you have a premium account, you can share that stuff with people that are in the games that you're running, but like that's it. You can't share that material digitally with anybody else. It's kind of janky. But you know, they've made some changes to ASIs and stuff with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which is a good step in the right direction. But that stuff has been available on from third-party publishers for a long time. So why did it take them that long when we've had, you know, Gabe James Games had his stuff out for years. We've got Ancestry and Culture and Alternative to Race and 5th edition out for years. This has already been stuff that people have been talking about and interested in, and removing, you know, penalties to ability scores based on race. Like that has been in the discourse for a really long time. Why is it just finally being addressed by Wizards of the Coast now? Well, it's because there's a lot of people that play D&D that are just racist. It's what it is.
Yeah.
And they don't want to like hurt their fan base or whatever. But that prevents them from developing a new fan base of people that aren't racist.
Well, do you think that part of their reluctance to join Discord, or part of their willingness to join the Discord now, or discourse now. I keep saying Discord. Joining the discourse now is that the surge in popularity over recent years with like all of these podcasts and shows and Critical Role and all of those, like boosting the popularity of D&D, that now they really have to join the discourse because it's so big that everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful that there's been a surge of interest in RPGs, specifically D&D, that is skewing younger and more diverse, and that is, you know, really directly tied to Critical Role, in my opinion. Other people will say the Adventure Zone too. Adventure Zone is like sort of okay at, you know, representing people other than white people, but Critical Role did a much better job in terms of their characterizations, in my opinion. But it's very popular now, and it's young people who are interested in it, and thankfully, generally, young nerds are a lot more open-minded and have experienced a lot more interactions with people that are different from them, so that empathy is there. But like, D&D was a white boy's hobby when it first came out, and it was not cool to play it. Like, this was like the tier. Even when I was in school, I didn't get into D&D until I was a grown adult. When I was in school, like, D&D was like a bridge too far, and I was a huge nerd, but that was a bridge too far for me. It wasn't until I was a grown up and I had a friend who played D&D and was like, please come and play my game. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll try it because love you. And now, 15 years later, here we are. I got a sword on my bed. So. Am I allowed to show a sword on Twitch, or is that going to get you in trouble?
I don't think you'll get in trouble for showing a sword. I mean, I don't know.
Show the sword. Show the sword. I want to see it.
Got it in the mail. Oh, don't break my window.
Nice.
It's a prop sword in that it doesn't have a sharp edge. But it still weighs like 10 pounds.
Did you just get it?
Yeah, I just came the other day.
Nice.
And you recently got ears and tiefling horns.
I got tiefling horns too. The tiefling horns are further away on my bed, but I can get those out later if you want me to. I just have a lot of friends that are really into cosplay, and I've just never been into cosplay in general. But they were encouraging me to do it, and so I said, okay. I'm already shadow banned, so why not? Why not dress up? But yeah, sorry, I'm getting off.
No, it's fine. It's
wicked
fine.
tangent right now.
Yeah, we do we get off topic a lot. But we actually have been getting a little more into cosplay. Malika's been doing cosplay for a couple years. She has a really good Legend of Korra that she does. It's really good. And Darnel and I did a group cosplay together. We did a pairing. That was my first cosplay just this February. You know, we went to the convention, and that was the first time I'd ever done a cosplay, you know. And
then, oh, sorry. You keep going. I want to hear about your cosplay.
I did a My Hero Academy cosplay with Darnel. He was Red Riot, and I was Fat Gum.
Nice.
So
that's super cool.
Yeah, it was fun. But I can bring us circling back to topic. I do remember my first time playing D&D was with a group of white boys being too like being not cool. And then I think when I was in high school, there was those like there was that like skit. I don't remember who did it, but it was like the Dungeons and Dragons is evil, like skit where they just kept making that joke of like, I cast magic missile.
I cast magic missile into the darkness.
Yeah. Exactly.
There are girls there. I want to do them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Today I learned.
That's how long ago it
got
was.
an ogre stabbing knife. It's got +5 against ogres. It's a classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
And D&D was not cool back then. So, you couldn't stay playing, or else, you because you start getting older in high school and then you're like, I can be a nerd, but how much of a nerd can I be and still be like acceptable? And like, it's a weird thing because that doesn't exist these days. Like, you could just be a nerd. No one cares.
Now it's like a personality trait. And also like the popularity of things like, Marvel Studios and those films have really just sort of kicked down that door of nerddom, and now everything, the water main is broken, the floors are flooded, like it's everywhere. So it's not that far of a jump anymore to be like, oh, I'm a huge comic book nerd now, so how about I hop over here into RPG land and enjoy that as well. And
I think go ahead.
I was gonna say my kids at school, we're all teaching online right now. One of the things, that the kids request to do for fun is to go online and make Hero Forge characters. So they have all these ideas in their head of these like warriors and spellcasters and awesome dudes, and then they just go into Hero Forge and make the characters and then like make up a whole story for them and talk about them, and like that's what they do for recreation, and it's just
that's cool.
So wonderful.
That's cool. It's nice to like have that, and like that we're at this point right now where we can look at like little kids just being like unashamedly like interested in everything that we used to like hide. It's so I think it's kind of like empowering for us. Like, it's great for the kids, but it makes me feel like so much more comfortable knowing that like it's just okay now.
Yeah. Well, it makes you comfortable because you're well adjusted, but there are the people who are pissed about no longer being able to access things like Oriental Adventures, who are very resentful that there are all these new people in the hobby because now there's economic pressure to make these changes. And they're like, well, I was into this back when I got teased about it. And like these new people haven't like earned, I don't know, the I've been bullied badge or whatever it is that they think they have. Like, you haven't been tormented for your hobbies, therefore you have no say in how the whole organization changes, and that's
don't get us started on gatekeeping.
My God,
we will go.
I mean, that's part of the problem. That's why it took so long for WotC to make any changes, because the old gatekeepers were like, no.
Well, you hear that same type of talk for like everything, because like you see like women in gaming who just trying to say like, hey, I just want to join a match and not have people scream obscenities at me. And there's all these like broken dudes who are just like, they would never have survived in the Xbox days because like I would go in there and I'd get called this, that, and the other, and everybody according to this, everybody had sex with my mom. And it's just like, yeah, okay, well, just because you had to go through it doesn't mean it's okay. Like, yes, you got bullied and that sucks, so make it a better place for everyone else.
100%. I mean, look at what happened to Anita Sarkeesian and the excoriation that she went through. There's a convention up here in Seattle called Geek Girl Con, which is like specifically a convention that is designed to be a safe space for everyone to enjoy nerddom and con culture in a place where people are not going to be discriminated against or sexually harassed or all that gross stuff. And that's actually the only place that I have ever done cosplay. I did a Lumpy Space Princess cosplay there one year.
Ooh.
I did an Amethyst from Steven Universe cosplay there one year.
Yay!
And that was the only place that I felt really comfy to like put myself out there. But those sorts of safe spaces are still under construction in most places, at least in this country. But the people are calling for them, which is good.
Yeah, I think it needs to be.
That sounds like my kind of con.
You should come and check it out. It's really fun. Been to some really, really good panels there.
There you go, Malika.
Another trip planned.
Travel more. once cons exist again.
I miss them so much.
Yeah, but can you imagine if they just continued unabated throughout all of this? Like,
oh god, no.
Oh.
Talk about PAX pox.
Oh my god.
I love cons. I love cons, but they are so
Gross.
dirty.
Gross.
They're so gross.
They're
Like,
super gross.
con funk is real, and I could not imagine dealing with that during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, no. I would definitely come home with the con plague. No.
Yeah, you can't. So
Like,
I mean, I'm glad.
C2E2 right before everything hit the fan.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people got sick without realizing it there.
Yeah, we talked about it, about how we were considering it, like, yo, are we possibly going to die because we want to go to the, like, this was February, so it was really before everything started hitting the fan, but we're just like, it's a conversation we had when we went.
Yeah, that's, I think, important to have that conversation, but I feel like I want to steer us back towards questionable depictions
yes
of fantasy races, because I still do have a lot to say about this.
Go for
Are
it.
you all familiar with the Drow?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so the Drow, so in D&D there are elves, and there are all different kinds of elves. There are the high elves, which are like the more advanced society that's all about art and music and literature and things like that. There are the wood elves, which are like the Legolesses who live in the forest and are, at one with nature. And then there are the Drow, which are they live underground in the Underdark, and they, until recently, were considered to be, as a race, all evil. Just like orcs, all evil. And they have black skin. Dark skin.
That's not questionable at all.
Not questionable at all. So the only races in D&D that were considered to be completely all evil were the Drow, who have literal black skin, and orcs, whose entire physiology was like, and culture was directly tied to the original Tolkien descriptions of orcs as being this Mongoloid savage race or whatever. And that is what people have been clinging so desperately to, like, do not change this aspect where they are supposed to be evil, like, all throughout all of the lore and the Salvatore books and all of this, like, they have been evil. It doesn't make sense to like change them so that they're not evil anymore.
Yeah,
It's very frustrating because, like, when you look at it, originally it's not necessarily that they're inherently evil. Like, no person is inherently evil. No one pops out the baby chute like like, it's not a thing. You got to look at like how their culture is. So for the Drow, their primary deity is named Lolth, and she she is a lawful evil spider queen. And so the entire society of Drow are all devoted to this very, very evil deity. So in that way, it would make sense that people who are from, a Drow culture might have a tendency towards being a chode because they emulate this deity that is horrible. Same thing with the Orcs and Grumsh, who is this, evil war god of like destruction and murder. Yeah, if you're an orc and you worship Grumsh, like you're probably gonna be kind of murdery. Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
But you can't say like a drow is inherently evil. Like you can't play a good drow. You can't play a good orc. And so like that is what I've been happy seeing Wizards move away from, is that like they're inherently this way.
So what do you think about DMs that would allow a non-evil drow but say that because they're not evil, they're outcasts from the drow society and are constantly hunted for being a rogue drow?
So I feel like it depends on the like lore of the world that the DM is using. So if they've like homebrewed a whole situation, like my homebrew game, drow were never inherently evil. Drow didn't worship Lolth. They were like a very peaceful society in the Underdark, and we're known to sort of keep out of other people's the above ground people's business, but just they're chill. But like if you are running a game that is especially one of the older 5e modules before they started making some of these changes, there is like a historical canonical precedent that the majority of drow are evil, right? So I'm in a game a Tomb of Annihilation game, and I play a drow, or she's half drow, and she was a hermit because she was raised away from everyone else because she was an escapee from evil drow society, and it was actively being hunted by bad drow people. Okay, but it wasn't because drow are inherently evil. It was because they were worshippers of Lolth, where Lolth was bad news. and they were about ethnic purity, and the fact that she was half drow and half wood elf was a serious problem for them, and that's why she was being hunted. But it's about, you got to be careful. There's greater context. You can't just sit there and say, oh, it's drow as an entire race are bad. There are bad people in any situation. In my homebrew game, intentionally, drow are not evil. Orcs are not evil. In fact, like most technologically advanced society in the world that my players play in was the Orcish capital.
Wow,
and it was essentially like Sharn, right? Eberron. So they had airships, they had trains, they had like advanced arcane technology, and they shared this capital with the Goblins too. So it was basically like the monstrous goblinoid races all lived in this huge, like the land of Oz, essentially, capital. And I just steer clear of those tropes completely because they make me uncomfortable in the game that I'm running. I think the key is just to be aware of those tropes, to be aware of the historical precedent and the greater context of the world that we live in. I think a big argument that I hear all the time is like, well, we don't want to deal with issues like racism when we're playing D&D. We're playing D&D to escape from all of these problems that we have to deal with in the real world all the time. And I'm like, you can't get away from like you can as a white person can use D&D as like an escapism thing because for you it's not escapism. You're not escaping the problem. You're just not having to think about the problem for 3.5 to 4 hours a couple times a month. The problem doesn't go away for the people who are directly impacted by that problem every single day for their entire life. So when you sit there and complain like you keep your racism discourse out of my D&D, like it should have been there the whole time. You need to be thinking about this in art. Like and that's my opinion.
You're not gonna find any like dissenting opinions here for that one. I think the number of times that we've sat here and tried to like have an escape and just say you're like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. 5 minutes in, you're like, okay, we got to talk about, and it just keeps going. Like it's unavoidable for us because it's part of our lives, you know?
Yeah.
So
like you shouldn't have to play in a game that's like directly confronting issues of racism. Like that's not appropriate unless that's something you want. But to just ignore it or like refuse to address it at the table if it comes up is problematic. It is not good allyship in my opinion.
No.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, what do you think? So we've discussed it in the context of D&D, and it's up to the lore that you set. But what do you think about like the context of like shows that just paint them all in an evil light? So if we look at like the anime Goblin Slayer, right? All goblins are terrible in there. They're like low level monsters, but apparently it can also be high level. Have you guys seen Goblin Slayer?
A few episodes.
Yeah. It revolves around a character who slays goblins. So it's a very appropriate title. But
That's the rapey one, right?
It is the one with the very bad scene in the first episode, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That completely unnecessary, terrible scene.
Sounds like a real winner.
Yeah.
I'll add that to the list of things I'm never going to watch.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those ones that is terrible like in that first episode for no reason, and then they never do anything else like it again. So it was unnecessary. They talk about it, but they say it's like, so they paint the goblins in an evil light. So they say that that's what they do in this world. There are no female goblins, so they occasionally
they reproduce by mitosis. Like
no, they just... So in this, they will go to villages and capture people and take them back to the caves.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the question I think for this example, is this American anime or is this a Japanese anime?
Japanese.
So there's something to be said about how American historical context for these sorts of issues is very different than Japanese historical context for these sorts of issues. So like those sorts of fantasy tropes are, I'm not gonna say are less problematic in a Japanese anime, but like probably less considered prior to animating it and get some voices on there and putting it out there. Like there's probably less opportunities in the production process to think like, how is this going to affect our American audiences? Like, what are they going to think of this? Like, how are they going to interpret this?
Yeah.
That's just an assumption I'm making though.
Yeah. I remember there being a lot of backlash for that. And so there was talk of that, but also in an episode, the guy is clearing out a cave of goblins, and they discover baby goblins. And one of the adventurers says, "Oh, they're babies. We should just let them go." And the Goblin Slayer says, "There's no such thing as like a good goblin. Like the only good goblin is a dead goblin." So
is there ever any commentary later in the show that retracts that viewpoint or is a counterpoint to that, or are they just ride or die on like all goblins are bad for the whole show?
So far there's only one season. I've not read the manga. But it seems like that's where it goes. Like it's interesting because like the baby goblins do look very innocent. They're just cowering in a corner afraid, and these goblins, they show emotion, you know, but it's very weird because they don't touch on it. But I wanted to bring it up as like how do you feel about the context of like the whole show is created around the goblins are evil. So I'm not sure how I feel about it.
It doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
It's not reading very well from here. That's for sure. Yeah, that's if they never address that specifically, that statement that you said where they'll make good goblin is a dead goblin, like that.
Yeah.
That this show is clearly not invested in racial issues. That's not something you say if you've thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only like finished watching the show because I was like expecting like there's gonna be like a goblin that comes back and beats this dude's ass and says, "Look, not all of us are pieces of shit." And like it never happened. I'm like, oh, so we're just gonna. Like it's kind of weird. There's like you have like these little moments of like they're not complete pieces of shit. Nah, fucking stab.
Yeah, it's very interesting because they established that like there's like a hierarchy, and they established that like that as they get stronger, they also get smarter, and there's like I think they called it like a goblin champion or a goblin king, like because they level up. It's like an RPG. But like once the goblin reaches a certain level and rank, he becomes like a puppet master. He can devise plans and strategies, and it's just like once you have that type of like agency, like you should at that point address like, okay, well, like if you can make those types of decisions, high level decisions, you have agency. Like you can be evil or not evil. So it's not like they're all mindless, because clearly like
if you have language, if you have a societal structure, if you have technology, and you have sentience, you are a person. You're a person. Yeah, do they sing? Yeah, like those
that's the first thing that popped in my mind.
That's what you need for society. Like those are people. So they need to be treated like people and not things.
Mm-hmm.
They're not creatures. They're humanoids.
Yeah.
They're in a whole other class. Yeah, that's don't want to watch that show. I don't want to watch that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Touching on that, it makes me think the Descendants books. I don't know if you guys Mikie knows, but the Descendants books are basically the descendants of Disney villains and their kids and stuff like that. So in the book, goblins are seen as workers, and they all follow Maleficent's rule. So they work on the docks, they work in restaurants, they work in cafes, but they oftentimes get treated like complete crap. And this is a children's book, mind you. So they have these images where they see like, oh yeah, you have everyone else on the Isle of the Lost, which is all just evil people, bad people. And then you have the the goblins, which are the lowest of the low. Like you can't get any lower than a goblin. But they're also, they're your baristas. They work on the docks. They bring you your food, your imports, whatever. And it's just kind of like, is that okay to portray that to kids? Is that what you want kids
Depends
to
on the
about?
discourse. It depends on the discourse surrounding,
Do they address
what it means to be a goblin.
No. literally goblins just work for Maleficent. Like, they fear her, but they're also just mainly treated like crap.
Yeah, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Because that's there's definitely a racist allegory there, as well as classism, a bunch of heady topics that if you say, oh, there's this one type of person and they're doing all the service work, and then like never address who they are or why they're doing that work, like how did they end up in that role in society? Why is that important? Can they move? Is there mobility? Like whatever, they didn't have to have that detail that they were all goblins.
Yeah,
it have just been just all sorts of folks.
Yep.
Yeah, so when it becomes all goblins, then definitely racism is picking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
All right, so let's do. I kind of want to ask everybody, what is their most troublesome depiction or pet peeve depiction of any monster race in media? What's the one that like upsets you the most?
Well, it's not what bitch. I don't know.
That's a good question.
I mean, for me, it's the problems in D&D that I've been bringing up. Orcs, goblins, drow, these historical monstrous races that have been associated with people of color from the inception onward, and then the people who defend it.
Yeah,
I get angry about it every single day. So it's not like a single instance, but there is like a very popular character through D&D mythology named Dritz, who is a famous male drow ranger who males in Lolth worshipping drow society are like handkerchiefs, right? Like it's a very like matriarchal society. So it's this guy who like came from this oppressive society of evil women who like escaped and now like fights evil and is like a good drow. Ooh, a good drow. And he's like huge in terms of like myth arcs and stuff in the D&D universe. And there are people who argue, well, the existence of Dritz is completely like the importance of that character is completely erased by the idea that not all drow are evil, because he wouldn't be exceptional if not all drow were evil. And I'm like, but he can be though.
Yeah.
Like he can be exceptional. Not all drow are evil, as evidenced by the existence of Dritz.
Yeah.
Like it's not inherent. Because, and we know this because evidence right here. Like because of Dritz. That discourse. That's
your
that's
description
the
of
most problematic.
Your description of him makes him sound like a hashtag nice guy.
Yeah, it's a little bit. A little bit. He's a little incel. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, noted.
If he walks like an incel, if he talks like an incel, he's probably an incel. Anyway, what do all of you think? There's so many to pick from. I can understand why you're stumped.
Mine would be the stereotypes that like are annoying to me. Like it's clearly not a black person or a Hispanic person, but then they talk with an accent or like they dress a certain way. It's like, oh, motherfuckers, did you just have the fucking orc ass for fried chicken?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, come on, like fried chicken, watermelon, like really?
Yeah.
Yeah, just put a little hood on him.
Yeah, that's all they
for
did.
Flavor. Like gross.
They dressed them like stereotypical gangbangers in Bright, and it was it's awful. Mine is the stereotypical like good vampire, because it's all the same. It's all the same vampire. It's all the same guy. Who they
Or
paint.
girl.
Well, in this one, I'm gonna paint it as the stereotypical good vampire guy, because it's always the same character who's like angsty, trapped in the body of a teenager who is only attracted to teenage girls despite being like several hundred years old. And it's just like, is that the only, like, is your only depiction of like a good like monster is to be like some angsty teen white guy who is very much into teenage girls? Like, I don't understand it. And there's always like a love situation.
Well, and when you have those anti-heroes too, like in fantasy, you know, in sci-fi, and even in dystopia, like the first layer of anti-hero is usually like, oh, he's partially monstrous, like he's a werewolf, and he's a werewolf, he's a vampire, he's a swamp man, whatever. But then you never get that second layer of, oh, he's a black vampire. He's a black werewolf. Like that that second tier, we never get there, and then they remain like the anti-hero. You know what I mean? Like we never get that extra layer of depth there. Like as soon as you darken the skin tone, suddenly no, that's not the anti-hero anymore. That's the bad guy. That's the BBEG.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Blade for being the only exception to that rule.
Yes.
Right.
Love Blade.
He is a big reference in Vampires versus the Bronx.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. I gotta watch that now. I have to watch it now. So, are you muted, Malika? I can't hear you.
Oh, she didn't hear her though.
Oh, there you are.
I was like, oh my god. All right. Darnel, what was yours?
Stereotypes of you know, where they like act like they're Mexicans or whatever.
Okay. All right. I think we kind of covered everything we were gonna go over. Is there any like final thoughts for this?
I can plug a couple of good resources for people who are interested in running not racist D&D games.
Ooh.
By all means.
Okay. So those of you who are not familiar with Gabe James games, James Hicks is his name. He's a very cool Gabriel Hicks, sorry. He's a very cool game designer, has made good supplemental material, and also has written his own games. But his handbook, it's called Class Modifier Module, and it is a way to create ability score modifiers for your characters that are completely separate from race. Because usually when you make characters in D&D, you get modifiers to your ability scores from your race and also your background and class. This is just completely, you get all of your ability modifiers from your class and not your race at all. Your race is completely irrelevant. So that's a really cool one. And then the other one, the one that I like to use a lot, where did I put it? Yes. It was put out by Arcanist Press, and it is called Ancestry and Culture, an alternative to race in 5e. So rather than the Gabe James game book, where all of your ability scores come from your class, with Ancestry and Culture, your ability scores are tied to your ancestry, which is kind of like your race. Okay, so there's certain like physical things that might be tied to your race, just like from a genetic perspective, like constitution, like your hardiness, or like your height, or like, you know, your strength, that sort of stuff. But the vast majority of it is based on the culture that you were raised in. So if you were elf and you were raised in dwarven culture, there are certain things that you would be good at because those were skills that were valued in Dwarven culture that you would get. And then they also have a bunch of alternative rules too for like the intermixing of all the races. So in D&D, usually you're just like one race, or you could be like half orc, which is a half orc, half human, or half elf, which is a half elf, half human. I don't know why human is always the middle ground there. But with the Ancestry and Culture book, you can be half anything. You can be like half tiefling, half human, half gnome, half halfling, half elf, half orc, like whatever, and you can combine it in ways that make sense based on the backstory and culture that your character came from. So I think those are both really cool tools that you can use when you're doing character generation or when you're helping your players through a session 0. And I had one more. It is. Why is my phone ringing?
Let's see. Oh man. My touchpad ruined the view. Okay, let's see.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's because I had
no.
just for a second everything when I was trying to read this message from the chats. Real Jazz 25. Make sure you're being healthy in mind, being caring, compromising for the ones you love, being loyal to the ones you love.
Oh, it's nice.
Oh yeah, that's a nice comment.
Well, my PDF is taking a really, really long time to open, but it's called Friends, Foes, and Other Fine Folks. Okay. And it is a handbook that is designed to help generate culturally diverse, non-offensive NPCs for your games. And it's available on DM's Guild. And let's see, who are the authors? So there's a lot of writers, but the project leads were Mark Kuski and Kiter. And yeah, it just has a ton of different people. It's basically like NPCs that are pre-made, that are ethnically diverse, that you could just insert into a game that gives you ways to describe them and background and personality characteristics, just to provide your players in your world with more diversity than would otherwise be there, which is especially helpful for people who are running games that just don't have a lot of exposure to different races and different cultures in the real world, right? So it's a very handy tool. So those 3 things I strongly recommend as entry-level resources for
I've got the
white, well-meaning allies.
Right, yeah. So I have the first one and the third one. Can you give me the title for the second one again? I think you said
Ancestry and Culture.
Ancestry and Culture.
An alternative to race in 5th edition.
Okay. All right. Oh, got it. Cool.
Good. Yeah, and you check those out. Let me know what you think. From a POC perspective.
Cool. Got those. Play Ultra Wide says, "What's up?" Just finishing up the podcast, man. But Play Ultra Wide, I wanted to let you know someone gifted you a sub the other day, so you now have access to our emotes. So
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So we have that. We have the 2 emotes for you: the Mimic You Rip and the Angry Mikie noises in the chat.
Awesome.
Which takes a really long time to approve emotes.
Yeah, it does.
We just put some new ones in there, and they took over 2 weeks to approve our first 2 emotes. And our new emotes that we've been camping on for at least 2 weeks at this point with no approval in sight.
My first 2 took that long, and then after that, everything else, I just swapped them around a bit, and I think you have to be affiliate and then have no issues or reports for a certain amount of time, and then everything after that is instant.
Yeah. I mean, our channel's grown really quickly, really fast. So maybe we haven't hit that like time bar yet. But I'm just a very impatient person.
I would like design them.
I want my emote now.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like when I was doing it at first, I was like designing some, and I was like, I want to throw it up, and then I was like, oh, this is terrible. I hate waiting.
Twitch, I make you so much money. Give me a little emote, please. It's the emote. One of them is an emote of me looking over my glasses like this, and I just want it so badly.
Player Joy commented your mic, said awesome mic.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.
It's my NPR mic.
You give us the world news.
I don't know. I'm trying not to get too sucked into the news right now. It's quite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
it's
kind of rough. There's a Cheeto in a hospital with a very nice
yeah.
Heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach. It's a whole thing.
I don't want to make statements on how it's like kind of weirdly bittersweet that the people celebrating the awful thing that they were deciding to do are all getting sick.
I mean, the word Schadenfreude was invented by the Germans for a reason. It has very specific applications, and this is one of them. So, irony, hubris, Schadenfreude, all my favorite words from 10th grade English composition class. Like, it's all happening at the same time. Oh, good Lord. I appreciate you inviting me to come and talk to all you fine folks about things that I care about. I appreciate the opportunity to further shout my opinions into the internet and hope that someone hears.
We appreciate you joining us. We actually love to have these types of conversations, and we know that, you know, a lot of people, you know, because of the changing way, and people are more, you know, all this nerd stuff is more accessible now than ever, and I think it's about time that we start talking about some of the things that we're discussing in some of our recent episodes. So we appreciate you coming on and shouting those opinions.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, if you ever want to talk about any of those other things too, let me know. If you have a Scientology episode, I'm there.
Oh, we got to do a Scientology
episode. Or just like cults in general. Like, I'm here for it. Conspiracy theories, those are all.
Malika, I can't hear you. Like,
nope.
No.
But you're like you're muted, or you were muted.
Try disconnecting and coming back.
Oh. I like how she just never pays her bill. She was bragging about, hey, mine's gonna work.
I pay my bill. I pay my bill. Don't start with me. Is it working now?
Yeah. No, we've said it before, and we'll say it again. Comcast is your biggest gatekeeper in nerd community.
No, it is just Discord. Okay? I have no issues when we do video chats on Messenger or anything else. It's just Discord hates me.
Okay.
Where's your real laptop? I'll give you money for my OnlyFans.
All right. So, what were you trying to say?
What were we talking about? Oh, true crime. I was gonna say, what are your thoughts on true crime?
I don't know as much about it as I do some other things. I do enjoy quite a few true crime, or at least I did enjoy quite a few true crime podcasts back when I had time to listen to podcasts.
Okay.
Yes.
Because as I say, we could definitely do a true crime episode. That would be fun.
That would be cool.
All right. Let's work on getting some more like nerdy topics out there, and we'll invite Shando back with us.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any final thoughts, Malika? Anything you'd like to say while your mic's working?
Stop! I don't know why it wasn't working. It doesn't like me.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
This was fun and a nice change of pace.
My pleasure.
All right, Darnell. Any last words from you?
Solid. Like, I like hearing somebody else's perspective who's also like. So I'm the slowest on the nerd total in this group. So it's always like, oh, cool. Somebody who knows more than Mikie does. Awesome.
Love to see it.
Yes.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Come
And
check out Bard Community College. We do some weird stuff.
yeah,
Weird stuff.
Weird.
we're gonna drop that. We're gonna drop that in the chat. We're gonna drop it in the description when we upload the video, and you can find us all at the little @ below our names here, and that's where we're at, and also Bard Community College on Twitch for Shando.
Yeah, please. We're all over the place. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We're diversified. We're not on Facebook.
That's
But
a horrible place.
It's a horrible place. And I mean, we're on Twitter, but I am not the one in charge of the Twitter account because I don't like Twitter.
It is also a horrible place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my friends Nick and Sloan, who are also part of the Bard Community College, I'm like, you do the Twitter. Please.
You take over that dumpster
Keep
fire.
that away
Oh.
from me. I understand the utility of Twitter. I understand the appeal of Twitter. I don't like it. So, but we're also on Twitter.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me. I really, really appreciate
Thanks
the
so much.
opportunity to talk to all of you.
It was definitely our pleasure.
I hope you have a wonderful evening.
You as well.
Thank you all for
You too.
watching, and we will see you next time on Nerds in the Dark.
Bye, guys.